Hi everyone. I'm very sorry that I'm late. I've just rushed from court to get here, so apologies for the delay. Just want to start off. Can everyone hear me clearly?
Yes.
Amazing. I just want to start off by, well, I was going to start off by introducing the panel, but I think it might be best if we just go round and everyone can introduce themselves. So for those of you who don't know me, I'm Taz. I'm a criminal barrister for the Crown Prosecution Service, and I've been very kindly joined today by some lovely, experienced professionals in their own right who are going to assist me today answering any pupillage questions that you have. So I'll pass over to Melissa.
Oh, Melanie.
Have we got Melissa here as well?
Oh, sorry.
No.
No. Okay. Melanie, please.
Sorry. Hello everyone. Contrary to what it says on my name tag, that's my husband's name. I'm actually Melanie Aarons, and I'm a newly qualified solicitor. But I have a background in social care. I'm a career changer to law, and I have had experience of many interviews over the course of my career. I've been on both sides of the interviewing table, so I am just here for general interview technique and advice. Thank you.
I think I'm conscious there are other members of the panel that were meant to be joining us, but I do think it is just myself and Melanie here this evening.
We've got Millie as well.
We've got Millie as well.
Yeah.
A lot of M's.
Yeah.
A lot of M's.
Hi, I'm Millie. I'm a pupil barrister at St Philip's Chambers. I'm the crime and regulatory pupil there, and I started my pupillage in October. I get on my feet in April, so coming up now to second six. And yeah, I've been through the pupillage process quite recently, so hopefully I'll be able to answer any questions about it.
This video is sponsored by Lexstreet, the first free online community for aspiring lawyers pursuing a legal career in England and Wales. Inside the community, you will gain access to our courses, legal career consulting programs, forum, free resources, and live events, which we run every month, covering a range of topics, including legal applications, legal interviews, advocacy events, and we host guest speakers from across the legal profession who share their tips and tricks on how to secure a training contract and pupillage. You can sign up for free at lexstreet.com, and we look forward to welcoming you inside our legal community.
I think, just before we begin, I'd like to say thank you to both of you for giving up your time this evening and joining me. Charlie as well, thank you for organising everything. This evening really is for everyone here who wants to ask the questions. Everyone brings a different level of skill and expertise. Everyone has a lot of value to offer here, and really we're here for you. So please don't be shy. Feel free to ask anything that you want. This slot is here for you really to answer anything that you want, and hopefully you'll get as much value out from all of us together as the questions that you asked. So who wants to ask the first question?
We've got Zohal, if you want to unmute yourself.
Good evening. Are you able to hear me?
Yes.
Perfect. Sorry, I have a dodgy mic, so I was hoping that it works. My question is, in particular, in regards to preparation, a bit more of a general question. If there's any tips in regards to preparation for people interview? There's just so much content out there, and it's so hard to prepare with the limited time, because a lot of us are either working full time or studying. So I find it very challenging, and I was unsuccessful last year. So I started by nailing like the basic questions that keep coming up. Why do you want to career at the bar? Or why you make an excellent barrister? But it's so hard also ensuring that I'm updated with all the legal topics that are coming up and reform topics in my area of practice. I don't know if you have any general tips. How did you prepare? Was it a hectic time? and how did you balance all the other commitments?
Millie, do you want to take? I think Millie's most recent, and then Melanie. Melanie is equally recent, so I think they might have a really good insights into this.
I think in terms of staying on top of things for what could come up, I think it's obviously a very broad spectrum of things that could come up, and therefore I think you have to accept that you can't possibly like read everything out there about all areas of law. But if you're applying for a specific practice area, then hopefully that's because you've got an interest in that practice area. So I would say focus on that and trying to follow any developments on that. Things like legal blogs are great for that. Chambers post articles that the barristers in chambers have written. So if there's a particular chambers that you are interested in and a particular area of law at that chambers, then maybe having a look at some of the blogs or the articles that they've got on their website would be a great place to start, because they will cover like recent things that either barristers have done in chambers or just general changes to the law that barristers have written articles about. And it shows as well that you've done your research. And then I think in terms of the wider things, it's just making sure you've read your applications again, because it can be a bit of a gap. So you want to remind yourself of what you've put in there. So if there was a question in there about, for example, like the example you gave of why do you want to be a barrister, return to what it is that you've said in that on paper, and then think about how you want to articulate that verbally. I think the biggest bit of advice I could give is just trying to stay calm in the interview itself. If a question does come up and it's something you just weren't expecting, then trying not to show the panic on your face. And I also think that it's okay to ask for further explanations from the people that are interviewing you. If there is a question that comes up that you weren't expecting and you maybe don't fully understand exactly what it is they're asking you. That's something I had to do in my first round interview with St. Philip's, and I was worried at the time that showed like a weakness almost, or like I didn't know what I was talking about. But I think they'd much rather you be honest, and they appreciate you just asking them to further explain something to you, if that then allows you to give a better answer. Yeah, hopefully that's helpful.
Oh, that's got the thumbs up. I just made some notes there, and I was thinking one of the things to do in preparation is, if you can, spend some time really thinking deeply about that answer to that question. Why law? Why a barrister? What is your story? Because that's often what interests and captivates the panel or the people interviewing you. They really want to get to know you through this process. And I think those are the things that really resonate. It's actually really thinking about your story, your journey, any twists or turns, what inspired you, and be honest about that. But maybe spend a little bit of time, if you go out on a walk or something like that. It's I sort of call it having a look in the mirror, but just really reflecting what is that, what is the honest answer to that question, and then preparing a little spiel in your own mind of, okay, these are the key points if I get asked that question that I would like to go through. And I am quite seasoned now at doing interviews, and I have already got that spiel about what my story is that led me into law and why I'm interested and my inspiration. So that just a little bit of time thinking about the honest answer. And in terms of preparation about your subject area, just to echo what Millie has said, you can't possibly prepare everything, but just showing that you've got a interest in the area of law to which you're applying, and that you've done you've done your research. I mean, this is the word that comes up time and time again, is your research and your preparation. And I really hear what you're saying about, I don't feel like I've got the time. I'm just absolutely inundated, but some things may be coming up in your work practice and in your lived experience every day anyway, that you can use as examples in all this busyness that you're already experiencing. I don't know if you've heard about Little Law. That's something I've come across recently, which is on through LinkedIn, but I think it's also a website and a blog. And the whole point of that Little Law, it's a lawyer who has felt that it's so hard to get to grips with up-to-date commercial subjects, and he's created Little Law, which is like little excerpts. So it's to help you with interview preparation, or just to keep abreast of what's going on in sort of snapshots. So take a look at that. Again, if you've got an interest in a particular area, I encourage you to be on LinkedIn and see if you can find a relevant group on LinkedIn that, you know, if it's criminal law that you're interested in, is there a criminal law barristers group? You can just, again, show that level of interest. I'm part of that group. You can see what the issues are in that particular field. Yeah, preparation. I just saw that coming up from Charlie on the chat. Preparation and learning to take those pauses, because sometimes when you're under that interview pressure, you can just rattle off like a train, and you don't need to. You'll be going so much faster. So it's okay to let your mind work, you know, be working faster than what's coming out of your mouth. And yeah, I think you touched on this, Millie, about in the interview, if you don't know the answer to something, it's a bit like the driving test. You don't fail the driving test for stalling, but you do if you can't recover from it. And that's the thing. What's your recovery going to be? And that will possibly impress the panel more than having the answer straight off. It's your recovery. So, I don't know about that, but if I were to go and give you the answer, these are the steps that I would take to get the answer, and you're showing them that you've you know, all that kind of how you think. So I think I'll leave it there for now, because I'm sure we'll cover lots more tips with the other questions that come up, but those are the ones off the top of my head.
Amazing. We've had a question from Nora as well about preparing legal problem questions for common law sets, which I don't think anyone on the panel is going to have particular expertise on, but problem questions in general we can probably tackle.
Yeah, I think so. I would just say as well, just touching on what Melanie said before, I really like that example of the driving test, because it is really what the interview is. It's you will stall a lot of times, and it's just coming back and composing yourself in the car and just carrying on the test. So I think that's a really, really good analogy for when you are in those rocky moments in an interview, and they always come. It's just to remember, just get going. Basically, don't let it drown you. In terms of the question that we had, in terms of what was I'm slipping my mind, Charlie, were we asked a question by, I think it's in the group.
We've had two. So the first one is, for those of you who interviewed but weren't successful the first time around, upon reflection, what do you think you didn't do quite well? And in retrospect, what do you think made you successful the second time around? Which I've partially answered in the chat, and then I think also has been covered. I think for a lot of people it is preparation. And I think that goes for any interview, right? Because you walk into one interview and you don't know what's going to come up, but each interview prepares you for the next one that comes after. And then Nora has said, do we have any tips for preparing legal problem questions? Ideally for common law sets, but I think some rules are applicable to all problems.
Yeah, definitely. I think you're right that we can touched on it as general, and I think when you're looking at a problem question, generally speaking, structure, I'd say, is the most important thing. Like, how are you structuring your response to what the question is? Let's, for example, take a tort question. Normally the structure is, most importantly in any question, is what's the issue that we're dealing with here, and we need to have that clear in our mind. And once we know what the issue is, we're thinking, okay, who is the client and what do they want? This is like the crux of any legal problem. And now we're thinking, okay, once we've got those things down in our mind, now we're thinking, okay, how am I going to go about structuring the answer? And like with anything, we need an introduction, and we're going to need a conclusion, because if you recall when you did the ethics exam, a lot of people sitting ethics always forget the actually delivering a resolution for the client, rather than just touching on what the ethical principles are. So again, for the legal problem, ideally we are introducing the issue, we're identifying what legal principles are or issues are in conflict, or what is the issue that the client's facing, who is the client, what are they seeking to achieve, and then we are going to outline, potentially subject to what the question is, what is the law around that issue. And then once we've outlined the law, we are describing how does the law that we've outlined apply to the set of facts that we've been given in the question. And that's where the application and the most important part of answering the question really comes in, because you don't get many marks for description. I always say that. You don't, like, that's a classic academic rule. They preach it at uni, they preach it wherever you are, there's no marks for description. So really you're going to start making your marks when you're just applying the law to the issue. And then ideally, you're going to be, if there are multiple issues, having them as separate paragraphs. And then once you've outlined them as separate paragraphs, if this is a written response we're talking about here, then we're moving on essentially to provide a mini conclusion for each, and then an overall conclusion for the client. And then normally within the context of common law problems, there will be a section, if you recall, with the opinions, where we are asking for further information. What witness statements do we need? What medical evidence do we need? There will be that section which should be featuring in a common law problem, and then we conclude. That would be my view. I'm not a common law practitioner, but that's kind of my understanding when I was doing the research and looking at how common law pupils apply it. And I don't think it's any different for a trainee solicitor either. If they're being faced with a legal problem, I would imagine they're going through the same process to answer it.
I can see Eleanor also has her hand up. Eleanor, if you want to come off mute and ask your question.
Hi, can you hear me? Okay.
Yes.
Hi. So my question is in regard to the CPS pupillage application. So this one might be more specific for TARS. I've heard that the questions can be quite abstract, so not the usual questions of why you want to be a barrister, why that area. So yeah, how would you prepare for those? Because I've heard that they can sort of give you a question that can be quite abstract and then sort of give you 1 minute to prepare.
So unfortunately, so I always have to balance this question. My part of my civil service obligations, CPS obligations, are, and I've had discussions with senior management who know I create content. I'm a digital creator. We've had discussions, and I've provided assurances to the CPS that I will not assist anyone in the CPS recruitment process. So that's just kind of to preface what I'm going to say, which is, with that said, there are a plethora of articles and videos online by charities, organizations, just ex CPS employees who do a really good job at just providing some clarity over the process. And the questions that you've asked, they will be available by other people that have written responses to what you're asking online. So my response to you, and regrettably it isn't the response I'd like to give, but it's the response that I'm able to give, is that if you conduct some really thorough research about people who've gone through the process, who are able to provide you some clarity, you will find the answers that you're looking for. Does that help? I appreciate that's a bit of a cop-out answer, but
yeah, no, that is helpful. Thank you.
Is that okay?
It
No
points
worries.
me in the right direction. I did have a second question from that, if that's okay. I'm applying next year to Pupilage, so I was just wondering if anyone knows sort of what sort of questions like general chambers do you tend to ask?
I might let Millie take that one. I think you're hot off the press, Millie, aren't you?
That's fine. If it helps, I actually did apply to the CPS as well. So I went through that process as well as like other chambers processes. And it's obviously a bit different in the way it works, like logistically. But I don't remember them asking any questions that were like too out there or massively different to what I would expect in other interviews, if that's reassuring. I can't remember, to be honest, exactly what the questions were because I did quite a few interviews around the same time. But yeah, obviously take Taz's advice on that one. Then in terms of other chambers, all chambers will do the process a bit differently to each other. So for St. Philip's, we have the first round interview is only 10 minutes. And it's 3 questions, all specific to your practice area, one of which will be a general question relevant to law as a whole. So mine was basically, should jury trials be recorded? So it's obviously touches on crime, but it's more like a more general legal question. One was a question about something that was kind of current affairs, so that was in the news at the time. I think a lot of chambers will touch on topics that are in the news because it's a good way for you to give a reasoned answer and like present an opinion and present an argument on it without having to have too much knowledge of the law specifically. And then there was one question that was more specific to crime and like a new regulation or changes to the criminal law. So I think that's where trying to stay on top of your practice area and like doing your research and reading the blogs and the articles comes in. So I would assume most first rounds are more similar to that. That was my experience of the interviews that I did. And then if you get through to second round, that's normally when you have the problem question or the advocacy exercise that we've just been discussing, and more questions surrounding what you put on your written application. But obviously your written application is the basis of your application, so I think it's likely in any interview that questions will come up to clarify things that you've put in that application. Which is why I said to make sure you go back to that to justify the things that you've put. I think the point of the interview is to allow you to present an argument, like I just said, and more often than not, they will then disagree with whichever side of the argument you choose to argue for. And you have to be able to stick to your guns and defend why it is you've said what you've said and offer any points to rebut what it is that they're now arguing. So even if I can't give you any guarantees on what the topics of the questions that would be asked are. I think that's the kind of thing you need to be expecting in terms of a bit of debate to showcase your advocacy skills in that way.
I think prepping the opposite as well. If they give you a topic to and say that they want you to prepare it, prepare the opposite, because then you'll know what other arguments they're going to bring up as well. I mean, I had one first round interview where they gave me a topic as to whether we should get rid of juries. So I spent 10 minutes prepping that like they told me to, delivered my first sentence, and they said, actually, give me the opposite argument just off the bat. So I think you just all round, don't just prepare what they tell you to, make sure you're prepared for them to either disagree with you or ask you to essentially disagree with yourself.
Definitely. I think as well, something that's good, which I found doing the type of debate style questions, is I remember trying to do research for his free speech under attack. Obviously now it's become way more topical with what's going on with Musk and Trump and Keir Starmer and everything. It's really at the forefront of the political sphere at the moment. But I remember when I was trying to research how to answer the question, I would just type in "is free speech," for example, under attack on Google, and you'd get all these articles that come up, and you just create a Word document really where you're taking 3 from this one and 3 from that one. And the problem is with that is that you might not necessarily believe it. And I think the power, what makes a good advocate, is someone who actually goes in, not necessarily you don't have to believe all the time, but if you're being asked, like Charlie said, for, okay, flip this on its head and give it me the other way, the standard or the expectation of how you deliver the submissions counter, in my view anyway, there's more allowances for that not being as strong as it should be or would be if you have been given time to prepare a question, and then you're going in and then you're delivering submissions on something which is half-baked, you don't really believe, because then that's showing at where you are, the standard of your advocacy when you're given time to prepare something, and that's the level. So I think that it sounds along the way, what I'm trying to go about saying is, when you're giving these opportunities to demonstrate your advocacy, I think it's better to sit with a question like, is free speech under attack? And it's great to do the research and just throw things into a Word document and get an idea, but it's also equally really good to ask yourself, research aside, just generally, what do you think? And then why do you think it? And it may be a technical question where you don't know anything, but even if you consider the jury question, for example, if you know what a jury is, and you can just take the question before you look at the data at a gut feeling, an instinct, an anecdotal feeling, and then test your feeling towards the question against the research. And I think that will lead to a more comprehensive answer when you're actually doing the submissions, and it will, touch wood, you'll actually pick the submissions which you really believe in. And I think that will make more impact when you come to interview.
I'm still on mute. Can everyone hear me now?
Yes.
There we go. Amazing. We've had a question in the chat, which is, if you've been told that you're going to have a written assessment, how do you prepare when you have no idea what it could be? Which, yeah, is difficult. And then, so more information is, they've been told it's a 45-minute assessment and they should just be prepared to answer any questions on the assessment in the interview. So, I mean, I guess that just comes back down to, with the time that you have available to you, you just prep as much as you can. I mean, I had a big folder full of common questions, trending legal topics, what type of biscuit I would be if I was going to be a biscuit, like as much as I possibly could cram into this folder. And then also things like what attracts me to that chambers, any cases that they'd done that I knew I could talk about confidently. But I guess I don't know what else you could prep if it doesn't tell you what it is.
Melanie, how would you go about doing your prep if they have told you what it is and you, let's say you've got limited time, how would you go about doing that?
I mean, if there's anyone who has done the interview before, a bit like with the, you know, people are joining this panel interview tonight or trying to do a bit of their own research into, is there anybody that's done this that can give me any indication, then that could be help you to narrow it down. You know, a written assessment is such a wide definition. It could be, are you right having to put you know, an opinion together? Are you putting together a letter? It could be a series of questions, one big question. You're going to put forward an argument. I mean, any of your legal training to date is going to be of benefit to you. Just remember, you're not going into this interview completely cold. You've already done a whole law degree. You've done a lot of written assessments in your life to date. So you're not a blank slate. Just remember all that stuff. Remember what you've been taught, how to structure a good piece of work. Take that breath, just like you do when you're doing the verbal and the oral. You know, just take that step before you put pen to paper. Right, read that question, you know, 10 times if you have to. What is my rough structure going to be to this response? Because the panic can set in, and I'm going to just have steam off my pen or my keyboard, and before I know it, the time's up, and I've tied myself in knots. I mean, they're looking for you to show that you can, in that time limit, put together probably a convincing, reasoned, well-structured argument. So bump your brakes, have your panic, read the question again, make sure that because that's the other thing. It's the classic, it's even from GCSE, isn't it? It's, you know, don't answer the wrong question, because that is a waste of time. So get your question right, get your answer right, take a deep breath, and do your best. I mean, you're going into an assessment without knowing if it's completely no context, you can only do your best as well. And it's all great experience. I mean, I'm at a stage where I'm very philosophical now, and I will take those you know, those failures or those rejections and go, okay, well, I know better next time now. A bit like Millie was saying, I did so many interviews, by the time you get to the fifth one, you know where you're going a little bit more. So just take everything as a practice. If it doesn't work out for you, and don't let yourself be too kind of crestfallen and defeated by that. It's a very difficult thing to do, you know, and that's what they're testing, how you're going to cope under pressure. So yeah, deep breaths, do your best, and remember everything that you do already know.
And building on that, like, there is, like, we smile about it, but there's actually, it is very true about the power that just comes from, say, philosophy, or just focusing on developing on yourself during the process as well, and kind of separating that this is just a job. It's harder, it's easier for us to say it because we're on the other side. However, we've also been on your side, and I know I don't speak for just myself when I say this, that kind of soul searching and just perspective shifting, it's not time wasted. Sometimes the most valuable time you can do is actually reading a book that's completely unrelated to any of this, that may shift your perception 1%. And then by doing that, it ends up taking a lot of pressure off an interview. So I think kind of self-development, however you want to word it, is really deeply valuable in the process.
I really agree with that, Taz, because I also think kind of you can almost, obviously, I'm sure you're going into that assessment desperately wanting to succeed in it, but I I sometimes play devil's advocate with my own mind and tell myself this is my practice, a bit like with the driving test. I am going to, you know, this is my practice test and the next one's going to be the real one. You know, that's this psychology, don't bluffing yourself about it can help to calm you down. But obviously, you know, it goes without saying you really want it. But yeah, just tell yourself maybe this is, you know, I'm going to get something from this, and you deserve to be there. You've been invited to that interview. You've put together a great assessment. They want it as well. And there is this other psychology side of things that you are also interviewing that chambers too, in the sense that, is it a good fit? Do you know, and prepare your own questions. I guess I don't, maybe Charlie and Millie can let me know if I'm off the mark here, but in all the interviews I've been to, I've always come prepared with a few questions of my own to show that, you know, I've researched that company or that firm. I'm really passionate and interested about it. And actually, can I ask you, what do you love being about working for this firm and being a barrister? What's your favorite case? People love talking about themselves. So, I mean, definitely buys you a bit of time if you feel like there's a bit of tumbleweed moment, you know, just put it back onto the panel. It's great. There's nothing worse if they say any questions and you haven't got any at the end of the interview. You should always have some questions. And yeah.
What's been really like, and I'm grateful to have both Melanie and Millie join us, is that when we are like hearing about Melanie's journey, and sure we'll get into that at another time. We want to have her back on, actually have a podcast episode with her. But what Melanie brings in terms of perspective is she's a founder of an amazing organization called Later On Lawyers, and she's kind of at a place in her journey where she's able to provide a different perspective than the general person, let's say, going into law, who might be a bit younger, who's just, okay, this is my first career. And I think actually having that dynamic of having someone who's had a different career come in and give the perspective and insight into what perspective shifts can take place to free you up, and how, as much as, like you said, we do want it, I think you can still want it without it burdening you in the process. And I think speaking to people like Melanie, speaking to more recent pupils like Millie, both have so much to offer. And I think when I consider what really made a big impact on me towards the end was being told very frankly by a then Queen's Counsel that you want it too much. And I left the meeting with him, really, I couldn't, that's the thing that stuck with me the whole weekend I was with him, that he said that. And that's a very frank thing for someone to say to you, where bear in mind I didn't know him that well. And I was very grateful that he did say it to me, because I needed to hear it. And I think that's something, I know we're talking about it a lot here, but I know it's something from speaking with a lot of more junior aspiring lawyers, is something that they really struggle with, is that need for something. And it is a great way of, like you were saying, do the practice test in your mind. I remember when my brother told me he passed his driving test first time. I went into my driving test first time with nervous wreck, because I was like, I've got to pass it first time. I failed it, and then I failed it the next time. And actually, the time I ended up passing was, I was like, I don't even care anymore. It is what it is. And then it just ends up working out. And this, although in a different realm, there's very similar ways and things that we can take from these kind of different experiences. What I was going to touch on, I know we're here for interviews, but again, as I've said, it all kind of feeds into the interview process, is something I get asked a lot is, what exercise can I prepare if it comes up? Stuff that we've touched on now, and I know it's different for commercial, civil, common law, but I think each of those different areas, there will be general types of things that you're expected to do, and there will be more general things that cut across all practice areas. So I think a good place to start is focusing on nailing the general, i.e. the debates, all these types of exercises that doesn't matter what area you're in, they're going to come up. And then as you start getting further out into your specific practice area, like Charlie said, you will start to see more and start having your own bank of exercises that keep coming up. Whether you pass or fail them, they're now forming part of your bank. And believe me, if you see one exercise in, let's say, commercial law, chances are similar sets are going to be doing the same type of thing because they think that's a good way of assessing candidates. So reach out to pupils to see if they may not give you the exact exercise because their chambers may not want them to do that for good reason, but I'm sure, and I know because I've spoken to some, people will be very helpful, and if they can't give you the exact question, they can give you roundabout, and they can give you enough information for you to go away and be prepared. So definitely network, reach out to people that you see that says future commercial pupil barrister, future family pupil barrister, and just message them on LinkedIn, strike up a conversation, say something to the effect, hey, I know you've just qualified, I'm X, Y, and Z. Is there any way that you can provide me any guidance specifically on assessments that you were asked? Chances are, if you ask 10 people, 2 people will come back and give you something. So don't underestimate the value of doing that.
I remember doing that. I messaged everyone I possibly knew who might know what some of the questions would be. And some of the answers I got did then come up. So I was more prepared from having spoken to people and knowing what was going to be asked. I think obviously with some of the topics, like I know crime, for instance, there's maybe 6 different types of questions that they ask if it's a problem question. I think family law can be a bit wider. But chances are you already know at least a little bit about what's going to come up.
And one response can change everything, really. You know, one piece of information. We have, Charlie, I say this every time, don't I? I say, we're going to finish at past today, and we're actually going to try and finish at past today because I can't take any more of Millie or Melanie's time. And so with that said, you know, we have 14 minutes left. Does anyone have any more questions about the interview process? First round interviews, second round interviews, anything that you feel like you're struggling to get an answer with? Could the panel share what kind of written assessments they did? So mine were, I did a lot of different ones, to be honest. I think, should we each give one and just go around? I think that might be a good way of doing it. So my one that sticks out to me, I think it was a bad character application that I had to do. And they're a bit of a nightmare to do, especially as an aspiring barrister. They're a nightmare to do as a qualified barrister. So yeah, that's one that I had to do. And there's a way of going about structuring that and delivering it in the right way. I will pass on to Millie.
I actually didn't do any written ones. I only did like oral advocacy assessments, so I can give the example of that if it's at all useful. I did one which was like charging advice to the CPS. So it was similar to a problem question in terms of I just got given a set of facts, and then it was basically to advise the CPS what the charges were, which were worth charging, which were worth pursuing, and then also to look at the sentence guidelines and advise on any likely sentences if they were successful on the charges. And just because I did that as oral advocacy, I'm sure that's something that could come up in a written piece of work as well.
Are you on the chat, Taz?
Yes, I'm just
Yeah.
seeing if I've missed it. I've just seen if I've missed anything. So we have for both oral and written advocacy assessments, did you feel you needed previous legal knowledge, or was it more how you think? So how I think from my recollection, in terms of I felt like there was always an element of specific knowledge needed, and other people on the panel may feel differently when they were applying, but for me, it wasn't necessarily the super nuanced knowledge, but there was an expectation I had an understanding of general principles in the area that I was applying. How does everyone else feel?
Yeah, I would definitely agree with that. And I think that that's another way of showing to them that you actually do have an interest in that practice area as well. Because really you should have a basic understanding of the foundations of the legal knowledge for that subject. Yeah.
I have a question for Millie, which is, please could Millie confirm what she stated regarding what the first interview consisted of again?
Yeah, of course. So this is obviously specific to the chambers that I'm now at, but the way that they approach first round is it's very short. You've only got 10 minutes and you've only got 3 questions to get through in that time. One is specifically about your area of law, and it can be quite a niche topic. So mine was about like a specific type of sentence and giving my opinion on it, essentially. One was more about the legal profession generally. So mine was about juries and whether jury trials should be recorded and publicized, like in the media. And that was because at the time of my interview, it was during the Amber Heard and Johnny Depp trial, which obviously was being televised and everybody was watching. And then the last one was just like a general current affairs type question, which for me was about my opinions on the sugar tax, which again is just to get you to give an opinion and to then argue that opinion, really.
Interestingly, all of those things were, I imagine, super topical at the time that you did them. And if you thought about one of the most, like at that time, that trial was taking the world by storm.
I think a lot of chambers, they're aware that it's impossible to cover everything. So certainly for St. Philip's, they try and kind of limit it to, when they say current affairs, it will be current, almost so that it's hard for you to have missed it because it will be in the news at the time of the interview.
So for you, it's an interesting question because it's really how long's a piece of string, and what is current to you? Is it months before the interview? Is it weeks, or is it and to qualify that further, is it mainstream or is it legal news?
I would probably say months, as opposed to like years, because obviously they do the pupillage cycle every year. So I'd say current to probably the time that you're going through the process. And then I guess the jury one did kind of cross over legal news and also the main news, but that was the one that was classed as the legal question. So I guess that could have been something more niche to legal news. But then the sugar tax one is obviously wider to the mainstream media.
I mean, Millie, just as an observation there, it's quite interesting. I was thinking, as long as you had a sort of, they were opinions, really, weren't they? They were just interested in how do you think. Those questions, to me, they weren't, I'm going to try and catch you out questions. They were pretty kind of, as long as you you could be scrolling on your phone, and you're going to get the Amber Heard and the sugar tax, and they're not technical legal questions, they're opinion pieces. What do you think? And if you think on your feet, you could probably just pull something out of your pocket on any of those, that you don't have to necessarily even be legally trained, do you? But it's just how are you going to argue your opinion about any particular topic? So my observations, those were quite kind questions. They're sort of giving you lots of opportunities to.
The third one was definitely a bit more niche and not so nice.
Yeah.
Knew that there were the more general ones.
But I guess sometimes you can just play it, be a bit of a politician and just play the question to the the answer to the question that you actually kind of wanted. Well, I don't know about that, but let me talk to you about obesity in childhood, and this is what I think about it. I don't know. It's that thinking on your feet thing, and it's quite niche, isn't it? But I suppose they weren't going into super technical legal section whatever of this and that statute from so that's helpful.
I think that is a strategy for sure. Sometimes if you don't know, you can take them onto a new topic, because it's better than saying I don't know, and then it's probably potentially even better of when you genuinely have no idea, and now you're just trying to put 3 weak points out, as opposed to shifting onto a topic that you do know. And even if you've not answered their question, you're still fulfilling what they're seeking to assess, which is your ability to argue something. Also, what might actually be helpful, answering one of the questions that we have in the chat, which is, well, Nora's said that this year, other than AI, what is likely to come up in current affairs? So what I've done is, why don't we use AI to ask that question? So I put this prompt in. You can see the prompt, and this is what we got. This is what we get out. I'm very impressed with it. And to be honest, it's definitely where I start my research. So that's the result of the prompt. And for people listening, I don't think it's actually pasted the whole thing in. So I'm just going to read it out. I asked it, what are the 10 most controversial mainstream debate topics within the news within the past 2 months? That's the prompt that me and Millie agreed. And then it's basically said climate change, social media regulation, green belt development. I didn't even know that was a controversial topic that's going on at the moment. Artificial intelligence, cancel culture, moments to controversial figures. I'm assuming they're talking about Trump and Elon Musk. Smartphones in the classroom, contact sports and head injuries, CTE, that's a big thing going on in the combat world, sport, and gun control. I think that's a great place to start. So AI, in the age of AI, let it be your best friend.
I will say, when you've searched like kind of controversial topics, I think they'll ask controversial in the sense of so that they can have a debate with you. But I think they try and steer away from anything like too controversial, and generally more political stuff. Like, I don't think they would start asking you about Donald Trump.
I think you might be right, and I won't bore everyone with another set of answers, but I'm going to put the prompt back in, and I'm just going to change controversial to political in case anyone wants to copy and paste the prompt to ask its own AI engines as a good place to start with your research.
I would say the good old Law Gazette, have a look at the last few copies of the Law Gazette for, if you want it to be specific to legal as well, legal current affairs, issues in the profession, things like that. And look on LinkedIn, and just again look on LinkedIn, because see what people are talking about. Although it will be kind of fixed on who your contacts are on stream, but
I hate to be the bearer of bad news, but I had a Donald Trump question. But I think what I experienced was rare. So my first round interview for that particular chambers was only 5 minutes, and bang on like 4 minutes and 59 seconds, they cut me off and said they were ending the interview. And the only question I had to answer was, what did I think the impact would be of another Donald Trump presidency? And they just wanted me to talk for 5 minutes about that, and then they ended the interview. So that was the worst one ever, because I had not prepared that, surprisingly. And then I know someone who was going through the interview stages at the same time as me, and she got asked a topical legal criminal question. I can't remember what it was, but she said, "I'm really sorry. I genuinely, I don't know enough about that to cobble together an answer that I think would be worth either of our time." She said, and they responded with, "How are you going to be a criminal lawyer if you don't know criminal topics?" And she said, "Because actually, I want to be a serious sexual offences specialist. So actually, I know about X, Y, and Z, which is currently like trending all over the place, really important. There's surveys going on, and like I can tell you the entire alphabet worth of facts about that." And she did get a second round interview. So
Just having the confidence to say it, isn't it?
yeah.
Yeah.
And knowing whether you can cobble something together that does it look like it's cobbled together, I guess.
Yeah.
Or will you actually look like you can competently answer that question?
Right. I think on that note, as we always go over, I'm going to really keep to the promise this time and say we've hit almost 1 minute out at the 1:30 mark. I just want to say a special thanks to everyone on the panel today for joining us. It's been really, really useful. It's been really helpful. I've learned a lot. I always do, sitting with people offering their insights. And most importantly, I hope everyone who's attended today can take something away that's going to assist you on your path to pupillage, on your next pupillage interview. Touch wood. We will here at Legis Lab, we're all keeping our fingers crossed for you. We are wishing you every success with your pupillage cycle this year. And if any of you have any final questions or things that you didn't get to ask, fire us over a message inside the community and we'll do our best to get back to you. Again, special thank you to the panel. Thank you everyone for giving up your time this evening. And that's everything from us.
Can I give an extra thank you to Millie, who stepped in very, very last minute after I was let down by a different panel member, and very kindly stepped in to save the day.
Thank you very much, Millie. Really appreciate it.
Fine, don't worry. Thank you for having me.
Thanks for joining us. And Melanie, thank you so much as well. Really do appreciate it. Anything I'm forgetting, Charlie?
No, I don't think so.
No.
And at 7:31, I think that's the most perfectly timed one we've ever done.
That's the wrap.
Thanks, everyone.
Perfect. Cheers, everyone.
Thank you,
Thank
everyone.
you. See you later.
Bye.
Bye-bye. Melanie, while I still have you.
Yeah, are there two people still on here, just to let you know, but yeah. Oh, there we go. Yeah.
Thank you for coming on today.
It's a pleasure.
I'd love to come on your, when you're running event, because
Yeah.
all three of us are together here now. So it's whenever you have the time and you want me to come on, let me know. More than happy to come on.
Thank you. Yeah. I've got this idea in my head that I've been stewing and brewing about having I'm going to call it a career carousel. So what I would love to do is have a selection of people working in law that are in completely different areas, so that people who are at a stage where they're feeling like, I don't even know what type of lawyer I'd like to be, could come to this session, and they'd have someone like you, a barrister in the CPS. But I'm very mindful of what you said during the talk as well, like you're a bit restricted in terms of how freely you feel you can talk about your work. And
what I'm going to do is I'm going to end the recording.
Oh yeah.
So we can.
Oh yeah, I've done this before as well.
I always forget, Charlie, how to end it. I think it's the three dots up here, isn't it? Should know this by now. It's the three dots. I think it is. I think if I just click on it, it should.
Oh, you're on mute, Charlie.
Sorry, I've got it up at the top for mine, and it just says stop recording, but I don't know if I
Yeah.
do it, if it
Yeah.
saves.
It will save.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll do it.